The Halafirin was the highest of the beacons, and like Eilenach, the next in height, appeared to stand up alone out of a great wood, for behind it there was a deep cleft. The dark Cirion dale, in the long northward spur of Eridnimrais, of which it was the highest point. Out of the cleft it rose like a sheer wall, but its outer slopes, especially northwards, were long and nowhere steep, and trees grew upon them almost to its summit. As they descended, the trees became ever more dense, especially along the Mering stream, which rose in the cleft, and northwards out into the plain through which the stream flowed into the Entwash. The great west road passed through a long cutting in the wood to avoid the wet land beyond its northern eaves. But this road had been made in ancient days, and after the departure of Isildur, no tree was ever felled in the Cirion wood, except only by the beacon wardens, whose task it was to keep open the great road and the path towards the summit of the hill. This path turned from the road near to its entrance into the wood, and wound its way up to the end of the trees, beyond which there was an ancient stairway of stone leading to the beacon's side, a wide circle levelled by those who had made the stair. The beacon wardens were the only inhabitants of the wood, save wild beasts. They housed in lodges in the trees near the summit, but they did not stay long unless held there by foul weather, and they came and went in turns of duty. For the most part they were glad to return home, not because of the peril of the wild beasts, nor did any evil shadow out of dark days lie upon the wood, but beneath the sounds of the winds, the cries of birds and beasts, or at times the noise of horsemen riding in haste upon the road, there lay a silence, and a man would find himself speaking to his comrades in a whisper, as if he expected to hear the echo of a great voice that called from far away and long ago. The name Halafirin meant in the language of the Rohirrim, Holy Mountain. Before their coming it was known in Sindarin as Oman Anwar, the Hill of Awe. For what reason was not known in Gondor, except only as later appeared to the ruling king or steward. For the few men who ever ventured to leave the road and wander under the trees, the wood itself seemed reason enough. In the common speech it was called the Whispering Wood. In the great days of Gondor no beacon was built on the hill, while the Palantiri still maintained communication between Osgiliath and the three towers of the realm, without need of messages or signals. In later days little aid could be expected from the north, as the people of Calenhardon declined, nor was armed force sent thither, as Minas Tirith became more and more hard put to it to hold the line of the Anduin and guard its southern coast. In Anorion many people still dwelt, and had the task of guarding the northern approaches, either out of Calenhardon or across the Anduin at Caer Andros. For communication with them, the three oldest beacons, Amandine, Eilenach, and Mimriman, were built and maintained. But though the line of the Mering stream was fortified, between the impassable marshes of its confluence with the Entwash and the bridge where the road passed westward out of the Cirion wood, it was not permitted that any fort or beacon should be set upon Amman Anwar. In the days of Cirion the Steward, there came a great assault by the Belkoth, who, allied with orcs, crossed the Anduin into the wold and began the conquest of Calenhardon. From this deadly peril, which would have brought ruin upon Gondor, the coming of Eorl the Young and the Rohirrim rescued the realm. When the war was over, men wondered in what way the steward would honour Eorl and reward him, and expected that a great feast would be held in Minas Tirith, at which this would be revealed. But Cirion was a man who kept his own counsel. As the diminished army of Gondor made its way south, he was accompanied by Eorl and an Eored of the Riders of the North. When they came to the Medding stream, Cirion turned to Eorl and said, to men's wonder, "Farewell now, Eorl, son of Leod. I will return to my home, where much needs to be set in order. Calenhardon I commit to your care for this time, if you are not in haste to return to your own realm. In 3 months' time I will meet you here again, and then we will take counsel together." "I will come," Eorl answered, and so they parted. As soon as Cirion came to Minas Tirith, he summoned some of his most trusted servants. "Go now to the Whispering Wood," he said. "There you must reopen the ancient path to Aman Anwa. It is long overgrown, but the entrance is still marked by a standing stone beside the road. At that point where the northern region of the wood closes in upon it, the path turns this way and that, but at each turn there is a standing stone. Following these you will come at length to the end of the trees, and find a stone stair that leads on upwards. I charge you to go no further. Do this work as swiftly as you may, and then return to me. Fell no trees, only clear a way by which a few men on foot can easily pass upwards. Leave the entrance by the road still shrouded, so that none that use the road may be tempted to use the path before I come there myself. Tell no one whither you go or what you have done. If any ask, say only that the Lord Steward wishes for a place to be made ready for his meeting with the Lord of the Riders." In due time, Cirion set out with Halas, his son, and the Lord of Dol Amroth, and 2 others of his council, and he met Eorl at the crossing of the Medding stream. With Eorl were 3 of his chief captains. "Let us go now to the place that I have prepared," said Cirion. Then they left a guard of riders at the bridge and turned back into the tree-shadowed road, and came to the standing stone. There they left their horses, and another strong guard of soldiers of Gondor, and Cirion, standing by the stone, turned to his companions and said, "I go now to the Hill of Or. Follow me if you will. With me shall come an esquire, and another with Eorl, to bear our arms. All others shall go unarmed as witness of our words and deeds in the high place. The path has been made ready, though none have used it since I came here with my father." Then Cirion led Eorl into the trees, and the others followed in order. And after they had passed the first of the inner stones, their voices were stilled, and they walked warily, as if unwilling to make any sound. So they came at last to the upper slopes of the hill, and passed through a belt of white birches, and saw the stone stair going up to the summit. After the shadow of the wood, the sun seemed hot and bright, for it was the month of Urim, yet the crown of the hill was green, as if the year was still in Lotese. At the foot of the stair there was a small shelf or cove made in the hillside with low turfed banks. There the company sat for a while, until Cirion rose and from his esquire took the white wand of office and the white mantle of the stewards of Gondor. Then standing on the first step of the stair he broke the silence, saying in a low but clear voice, "I will now declare what I have resolved, with the authority of the stewards of the kings, to offer to Eorl, son of Leod, lord of the Eothid, in recognition of the valour of his people, and of the help beyond hope that he brought to Gondor in time of dire need. To Eorl I will give in free gift all the great land of Calenhardon, from Anduin to Isen. There, if he will, he shall be king, and his heirs after him, and his people shall dwell in freedom, while the authority of the stewards endures. until the great king returns. No bond shall be laid upon them other than their own laws and will, save this only: they shall live in perpetual friendship with Gondor, and its enemies shall be their enemies, while both realms endure. But the same bond shall be laid also on the people of Gondor. Then Eorl stood up, but remained for some time silent, for he was amazed by the great generosity of the gift and the noble terms in which it had been offered, and he saw the wisdom of Cirion both on his own behalf as a ruler of Gondor, seeking to protect what remained of his realm, and as a friend of the Eorthead, of whose needs he was aware, for they were now grown to a people too numerous for their land in the north, and longed to return south to their former home. But they were restrained by the fear of Dol Guldur. But in Calenhardon they would have room beyond hope, and yet be far from the shadows of Mirkwood. Yet beyond wisdom and policy both, Cirion and Eorl were moved at that time by the great friendship that bound their peoples together, and by the love that was between them as true men. On the part of Cirion, the love was that of a wise father, old in the cares of the world, for a son in the strength and hope of his youth, while in Cirion Eorl saw the highest and noblest man of the world that he knew, and the wisest, on whom sat the majesty of the kings of men of long ago. At last, when Eorl had swiftly passed all these things through his thought, he spoke, saying, Lord Steward of the great king, the gift that you offer I accept for myself and for my people. It far exceeds any reward that our deeds could have earned, if they had not themselves been a free gift of friendship. But now I will seal that friendship with an oath that shall not be forgotten. Then let us go now to the high place, said Cirion, and before these witnesses take such oaths as seem fitting. Then Cirion went up the stair with Eorl, and the others followed. And when they came to the summit, they saw there a wide oval place of level turf, unfenced, but at its eastern end there stood a low mound, on which grew the white flowers of Alfirion, and the westering sun touched them with gold. Then the lord of Dol Amroth, chief of those in the company of Cirion, went towards the mound, and saw, lying on the grass before it, and yet unmarred by weed or weather, a black stone, and on the stone 3 letters were engraved. Then he said to Cirion, Is this then a tomb? But what great man of old lies here? Have you not read the letters? Said Cirion. I have, said the prince, and therefore I wonder, for the letters are Lamb and Lamb. But there is no tomb for Elendil, nor has any man since his day dared to use that name. Nonetheless, this is his tomb, said Cirion, and from it comes awe that dwells on the hills and in the woods below, from Isildur, who raised it to Menelvil, who succeeded him, and so down all the line of the kings, and down the line of the stewards, even to myself. This tomb has been kept a secret by Isildur's command. For he said, Here is the midpoint of the kingdom of the south, and here shall the memorial of Elendil the faithful abide in the keeping of the Valar while the kingdom endures. This hill shall be a hallow, and let no man disturb its peace and silence, unless he be an heir of Elendil. I have brought you here, so that the oaths here taken may seem of deepest solemnity to ourselves and to our heirs upon either side. Then all those present stood a while in silence, with bowed heads, until Cirion said to Eorl, "If you are ready, take now your oath in such manner seems to you fitting according to the customs of your people." Eorl then stood forth, and taking his spear from his esquire, he set it upright on the ground. Then he drew his sword and cast it up, shining in the sun, and catching it again, he stepped forward and laid the blade upon the mound, but with his hand still about the hilt. He spoke then in a great voice the oath of Eorl. This he said in the tongue of the Eorthead, which in the common speech is interpreted, "Hear now all peoples who bow not to the shadow in the east, but the gift of the Lord of the Mundberg. We will come to dwell in the land that he names Calenharden, and therefore I vow in my own name and on behalf of the Eorthead of the north that between us and the great people of the west there shall be friendship forever. Their enemies shall be our enemies. Their need shall be our need, and whatsoever evil or threat or assault may come upon them, we will aid them to the utmost end of our strength. This vow shall descend to my heirs, all such as may come after me in our new land, and let them keep it in faith unbroken, lest the shadow fall upon them and they become accursed." Then Eorl sheathed his sword and bowed, and went back to his captains. Cirion then made answer. Standing to his full height, he laid his hand upon the tomb, and in his right hand held up the white wand of the stewards, and spoke words that filled those who heard them with awe. For as he stood up, the sun went down in flame in the west, and his white robe seemed to be on fire. And after he had vowed that Gondor should be bound by a like bond of friendship and in aid in all need, he lifted up his voice and said in Quenya, "Vanda sina termaruva, alenonorio alcar, and yalian ar alendil, vorondo voronue, nai turuvantes I harar mahalmasen, mi numen ar iru I or ille, mahalmar eia tenio." And again he said in the common speech, "This oath shall stand in memory of the glory of the land of the star, and of the faith of Elendil the faithful, in the keeping of those who sit upon the thrones of the west, and of the one who is above all thrones, forever." Such an oath had not been heard in Middle-earth since Elendil himself had sworn alliance with Gil-galad, king of the Eldar. When all was done and the shadows of evening were falling, Cirion and Eorl with their company went down again in silence through the darkling wood, and came back to the camp by the Mering stream, where tents had been prepared for them. After they had eaten, Cirion and Eorl, with the prince of Dol Amroth, and Eormund, the chief captain of the host of the Eorthead, sat together and defined the boundaries and the authority of the king of the Eorthead and the steward of Gondor. The bounds of the realm of Eorl were to be, in the west the river Engren from its junction with the Adon, and thence northwards to the outer fences of Agranost, and thence westwards and northwards along the eaves of Fingorn forest to the river Limlight, and that river was its northern boundary, for the land beyond had never been claimed by Gondor. In the east, its bounds were the Anduin, and the west cliff of the Emyn down to the marshes of the mouths of the Onodlo, and beyond that river the stream of the Glanhir, that flowed through the wood of Anwar to join the Onodlo, and in the south its bounds were the Ered Nimrais, as far as the end of their northward arm. But all those vales and inlets that opened northwards were to belong to the Eorthead, as well as the land south of the Hithaglair that lay between the rivers Angren and Edon. In all these regions Gondor still retained under its own command only the fortress of Angranost, within which was the third tower of Gondor, the impregnable Orthanc, where was held the fourth of the Palantiri of the southern realm. In the days of Cirion, Angranost was still manned by a guard of Gondorians, but these had become a small settled people, ruled by an hereditary captain, and the keys of Orthanc were in the keeping of the steward of Gondor. The outer fences, with a wall and a dike running south 2 miles of the gates of Angranost, between the hills in which the misty mountains ended, beyond them were the tilled lands of the people of the fortress. It was agreed also that the great road which had formerly run through Anorion and Calenharden to Arthred Engrin, the fords of Isen, and thence northwards on its way to Ornor, should be open to all travellers of either people without hindrance in time of peace, and its maintenance should from the Medding stream to the fords of Isen be in the care of the Eorl. By this pact only a small part of the wood of Anwar, west of the Medding stream, was included in the realm of Eorl. But Cirion declared that the hill of Anwar was now a hallowed place of both peoples, and the Eorlings and the stewards should henceforward share its guard and maintenance. In later days, however, as the Rohirrim grew in power and numbers, while Gondor declined and was ever threatened from the east and by the sea, the wardens of Anwar were provided entirely by the people of Eastfold, and the wood became by custom part of the royal domain of the kings of the Mark. The hill they named the Helifirion, and the wood the Firion Hold. In later times, the day of the oath-taking was reckoned as the first day of the new kingdom, when Eorl took the title of king of the Mark of the Riders. But in the event it was some while before the Rohirrim took possession of the land, and during his life Eorl was known as Lord of the Eorl and King of Calenharden. The term Mark signified a borderland, especially one serving as a defence of the inner lands of a realm. The Sindarin names Rohan for the Mark and Rohirrim for the peoples were devised first by Halas, son and successor of Cirion, but were often used not only in Gondor, but by the Eorl themselves. The day after the oath-taking, Cirion and Eorl embraced and took their leave unwillingly. For Eorl said, Lord Steward, I have much to do in haste. This land is now rid of enemies, but they are not destroyed at the root, and beyond Anduin, and under the eaves of Mirkwood, we know not yet what peril lurks. I sent yestereve 3 messengers north, riders brave and skilled, in the hope that one at least will reach my home before me. For now I must return myself, and with some strength. My land was left with few men, for those too young and those too old, and if they are to make so great a journey, our women and children, with such goods as we cannot spare, must be guarded, and only the Lord of the Eorl himself will they follow. I will leave behind me all the strength that I can spare, well nigh half of the host that is now in Calenharden. Some companies of horsed archers there shall be, to go where need calls, if any bands of the enemy still lurk in the land. But the main force shall remain in the northeast to guard above all the place where the Balkoth made a crossing of the Anduin out of the Brown Lands. For there is still the greater danger, and there is also my chief hope, if I return, of leading my people into their new land with as little grief and loss as may be. If I return, I say, but be assured that I shall return for the keeping of my oath, unless disaster befall us, and I perish with my people on the long road. For that must be on the east side of the Anduin, ever under the threat of Mirkwood. and at last must pass through the vale that is haunted by the shadow of the hill that you name Dol Guldur. On the west side there is no road for horsemen, nor for a great host of people in wains, even were not the mountains infested by orcs, and none can pass, few or many, through the Dwymordene, where dwells the White Lady, and weaves nets that no mortal can pass. By the east road I will come, as I came to Celebrant, and may those whom we call in witness of our oaths have us in their keeping. Let us now part in hope. Have I your leave? Indeed, you have my leave, said Cirion, since I see now that it cannot be otherwise. I perceive that in our peril I have given too little thought to the dangers that you have faced, and the wonder of your coming beyond hope over the long leagues from the north. The reward that I offered in joy and fullness of heart at our deliverance now seems little, but I believe that the words of my oath, which I had not forethought ere I spoke them, were not put into my mouth in vain. We will part then in hope. After the manner of the chroniclers, no doubt much of what is here put into the mouths of Eorl and Cirion at their parting was said, and considering the debate of the night before. But it is certain that Cirion said at parting his words concerning the inspiration of his oath, for he was a man of little pride, and of great courage and generosity of heart, the noblest of the stewards of Gondor.